Our next speaker spent 25 years heading up the largest drug enforcement agency office in the world. He's one of the most famous drug busters in America. The New York Magazine called him the most famous narc in America. Please welcome Bob Stutman.
Good morning. I want to first thank Joshua for coming on, because I was scared to death I was going to have to follow Katie. She's young, she's attractive, she's perky, she's techie, and she has a wonderfully upscale message. I have none of the above. So thank God, Joshua, I appreciate it. I'm going to try to take you in 20 minutes to a world you've probably never seen. For 25 years, I was a DEA agent. I was shot at 4 times. I had a contract on my life for 19 months by Pablo Escobar. My best friend was a DEA agent who was shot and killed in the line of duty. All of this happened while I was chasing, hopefully, the biggest, most important drug traffickers in the world, the people who were supplying us with heroin, cocaine, crack, etc. Today, we are in the middle of the worst drug epidemic we've ever seen in the United States, and there are no dope peddlers to chase. I don't know who to lock up. The source of supply for our kids have become physicians and parents, and this is a paradigm shift that none of us are prepared for. I have seen 2 drugs, in my opinion, change the American culture. Now, that's kind of a strange statement when you think about it, because a drug is just a chemical. How can a chemical change a culture? I think it's happened twice in modern history. LSD, 67 to 78, gave rise to or rose with the counterculture. Now, I don't care if you love or hate the counterculture. It's not the point. They changed America, and their sacrament was LSD, and they will tell you that. The second drug that changed the American culture was crack in 1985. Now, when I say crack changing culture, you certainly here in Houston suffered from what most people talk about, violence. When I say crack culture changer, everybody thinks violence. In fact, that was not the important culture-changing phenomena of crack. What crack did that I think changed America is it femaleized drug addiction. Before crack, 70% of drug addicts in the United States were men. Post-crack, it was 50-50. Last year, for the first time in history, more high school girls used illegal drugs and abused legal drugs than high school boys. And that was unheard of 5 to 10 years ago. Now, the social change for the United States, of course, is, unfortunately, most inner city families in America are matriarchal, run by mom, who was traditionally immune to drug addiction before crack. Post-crack, mom became a drug addict, and the last vestige of family life in many inner cities fell apart. And the New York Times won a Pulitzer Prize talking about how grandmothers have had to take over inner city families. And that was due to the drug crack. We are now in a third culture changing phenomena. The difference is, unlike crack and unlike LSD, nobody talks about it. It's not happening. 2 weeks ago, the Center of Disease Control put out a press release that I thought would be on the front page of every single newspaper in the country. It wasn't. For the first time in modern history, automobile accidents are now the second leading cause of death by accident in the United States. Automobiles are the second leading cause of death by accident in the United States. The leading cause of death by accidents in the United States in 2009 was overdose of pharmaceutical drugs. 37,552 people, 1 every 14 minutes, dies in the United States from a drug that they didn't get from a dope peddler. They got it from their mom and dad's medicine chests, and it was given to somebody by a physician. And that's the world that we are living in now. Less than 5% of people who are addicted to pharmaceutical drugs ever see a traditional dope peddler. It comes from mom, dad, uncles, aunts. It comes from medicine chests. And they look you in the eye and tell you it's safe because it came from a doctor. How bad is the drug problem in the United States? That's a trick question. If you look at the 15 years between 1992 and 2007, overall drug use has actually gone down a little bit. The bad news is that drug addiction during that same 15-year period has doubled. We have gone from 8.9 million drug addicts in the United States age 12 and over to 19 million drug addicts in the United States age 12 and over. How bad is it in high schools? Well, you guys all know. In a recent survey, 71% of graduating high school seniors said that their schools were drug infested. It meant they could get drugs in school within 15 minutes without ever leaving campus. I'm going to give you a bet. If I produced a paper tomorrow in the Houston Chronicle done by Columbia University that said 71% of the high schools in Houston had asbestos in the walls, you guys would be up in arms. You would not be letting your kids go to that school. Excuse me, 3,000 people a year die from mesothelioma, 3,000 die a month from pharmaceutical drugs, and we pay no attention to that. Well, what's interesting is what we have not paid attention to is what is happening in colleges in the United States. We all know what's happening in high schools. What's happening in colleges? Columbia University, 2 years ago, produced a study called Wasting Our Best and Our Brightest about college substance abuse. Let me share with you the two headlines of the study. Number one, 51% of all college students binge drink at least once a month and or use an illegal drug or abuse a legal drug while they're drinking or in place of drinking. Please understand what I just said. I did not say what you and I could have had happen to us 2 generations ago. These kids are getting drunk once a month. I said they're getting drunk and using drugs or using drugs in place of getting drunk. Anybody in this room that's been to an AA meeting will tell you AA would kill for a pure 35. There is no such a thing as a pure alcoholic in the United States anymore, under age 35. It is poly-drug use. So unfortunately, that's number one in college. Number two is actually, I think, far more frightening. If all college students in the United States underwent a normal diagnostic evaluation that can be done by a clinical substance abuse counselor, 21% of U.S. college students would meet the medical criteria for either drug addict or alcoholic. 1 out of 5 college students would meet the medical criteria for drug addict or alcoholic. The number for the U.S. in general, 8.4%. What are we now saying to our kids? Work hard, study hard, go to college. I'm going to give you a 3 times better chance of becoming a drug addict or an alcoholic. Now, when that study was first published by Columbia, a lot of people said, I don't buy it, can't be happening, we don't see the results. If it were that bad, we'd see the results. Of course we see the results. We look the other way, we pretend they're not there. As Joe Califano said, we have punctious pilot college presidents who pretend none of this is happening. Let me share 3 numbers with you. All 3 of these happen every single day of the year, 365 days a year on average. Number one, every single day of the year, 365 days a year on average, 2,500 college students are taken from a college campus to a hospital emergency in an emergency vehicle as a direct result of drug or alcohol use on a college campus. Number two, every single day of the year, 365 days a year on average, 300 female college students are raped on college campuses as a direct result of drug or alcohol use. And number 3, every single day of the year, 365 days a year on average, 5 college students die on college campuses as a direct result of drug or alcohol use, and we pretend it's not happening. Now, why are we in this position? Well, we actually have less drug users, far more drug addicts. I believe there are 2 reasons. Number 1, age of first use. How old are kids when they first start using? Every substance abuse expert in the world will agree on one thing. The younger a child is when they first start doing drugs or alcohol, the more likely they are to become a drug addict or an alcoholic. When most of you were in high school, and I can't see most of you, but I'm going to guess most of you were in high school, average age of first use of drugs was about 15, give or take. Last year, the average age of first use of drugs was 12 years, 3 months. The grade that kids are most at risk to first tasting recreational alcohol in the United States. This doesn't mean they're getting drunk. They're having booze away from their parents. Anybody know what grade is the most at-risk grade in the United States? 4th grade. 4th grade is the most at-risk grade to kids trying booze without their parents. So we are getting younger and younger. And you all know most young kids, by the way, start their drug habits by huffing. They inhale something. The number one inhaled product in the United States is PAM. You spray it in a paper bag, you stick your head in and you inhale, and you're as high as anybody wants to be. So age of first use is the number one problem. Second problem, the drugs they're using. Let me be very clear. If you smoke too much grass in high school, so what? You did too much LSD in high school, you may have had a bad month, a bad year, but basically, so what? Here's the difference. The drugs our kids are using, they have no room for mistake. Slightest mistake, and they die. Now, let us be clear. Michael Jackson proved you can use a whole bunch of different drugs and abuse them. I am talking about 2 specific sets of drugs. Number one, the most widely abused drugs in the United States for teenagers are Adderall and Ritalin. Gee, what a shock. They're the most widely prescribed drug in the United States for ADD, ADHD. Why would a kid who does not have ADD or ADHD want to take an Adderall or Ritalin? Because it's methamphetamine. It is synthetic cocaine. If a kid has the medical diagnosis of ADD or ADHD, it allows them to focus. If you don't have that diagnosis, you pop open the capsule, you snort the granules, you might as well be snorting a line of coke, because the pharmaceutical product is the same. So Adderall and Ritalin is the problem by sheer numbers, but that's not the one that are killing our kids. Let us be very clear what's killing our kids. It is long-term extended release opioids. We are number 1 in the world for prescription of opioids per capita. Number 2 is Denmark. They prescribe half of what we prescribe. And that's what's killing America. Please understand, when kids take opioids, they do not pop a pill. They take the OxyContin, they crush it, and they swallow it or snort it. What have I just done? I've just taken a drug that's supposed to be introduced to my system over 8 hours and introduced it in my system over 8 seconds, and it hits them, boom, like a freight train. If you ask a kid, what does it feel like to take an OxyContin? The most articulate answer I ever got was from a 17-year-old high school student. What does it feel like to be on OxyContin? He looked at me and he said, it's like being held in my mother's arms. The moms in the audience all understand exactly what that means. I can take the most powerful emotional bond in the world, crush a tablet from your medicine chest, give it to a 15-year-old, and control them. And unfortunately, it causes huge amounts of deaths and certainly a huge amount of overdose. By the way, one of the scary parts about OxyContin is it's almost impossible to tell the addict. If you don't believe me, I got 2 words for you: Rush Limbaugh. By his own admission, an OxyContin addict for 3 years, you could not tell the difference when he was on the radio as an addict or a non-addict. I don't care if you love him or hate him, not the point. You could not tell the difference. That's the scary part about OxyContin. Who are the drug addicts in the United States? 5 quick markers. Number 1, ethnicity. Can you tell a drug addict by the color of their skin? Yes, you can. 78% are white. It is a white-dominated disease, despite what you think. In high schools, African Americans and Caucasians have almost the exact same per capita amount of drug use. Latinos have a much lower rate of drug and alcohol abuse than both African Americans and Caucasians. Number 2, is it just a big city problem? If it is, somebody please tell me why Montana and Alaska have the two biggest teenage drug addiction problems in the country. Number 3, private school versus public school. Private schools generally have a higher rate of substance abuse than public schools. Number 4, high school athletics. I'll get dads who say to me, you scared me because I got a son in high school, but thank God he doesn't do drugs and he uses 3 words. You know what the 3 words are? He plays ball. How does high school athletics affect substance abuse? Kids who play team sports in high school have a higher rate of substance abuse than kids who play no sports at all. Kids who play individual sports in high school, track and field, swimming, etc., lower rate of substance abuse than kids who play no sports at all. And then the final 2, intelligence and not my kid. My kid's too smart, it can't happen to me. I gave a speech in 2006 to a group of folks who were CEOs of very, very big companies, important companies. A man came up to me at the break, he said, I hope they listen to you. I said, why? He said, my younger son is in recovery from OxyContin. My older son is a cocaine addict alcoholic, and that's the good news. That's literally what he said to me. He said, the bad news is he graduates UPenn Medical School next month, and he thinks because he's a doctor, he can handle this crap. 4 months later, I got an email from that man who told me that his son, who graduated number 1 in his class from University of Wisconsin-Madison, medical school at University of Pennsylvania, same day, same stage, received his MBA from Wharton. 29 days after that, he was dead from a drug overdose. Nobody is smarter than drugs. Nobody is smarter than drugs. What are the 3 most accurate predictors as to whether or not your child will become a drug addict? I want to go through them real quick because I get asked this all the time. Number 1, we already shared with you, age of first use. The younger a kid starts, the bigger the problem. Number 2, what drug is the predictor drug? If a kid uses this drug, they are 12 to 16 times more likely to become a drug addict or an alcoholic. Tobacco. Tobacco is the drug that predicts drug usage and alcoholism. Number 3, I think it's the most accurate predictor and the most important because it's the one we can do something about. You know what it is? It's a number. The higher the number, the better for your child. The highest the number can be is 7. What does the number stand for? The number of times a week the family has dinner together. The prediction value of those studies is incredible. This is not a political statement. I certainly wouldn't make one in Houston. Please understand. Please understand that if the President of the United States, our president, can have dinner with his daughter every night from 6 to 7, then we can make a better effort to have dinner with our kids because it shows our kids that we care, we're listening, we're talking, and kids want to talk about this. I'm going to close with what I think was the strongest drug speech I ever gave. Some of you may think I'm too strong. Let me share with you the strongest drug speech I ever heard. It was given by a woman who spoke when I spoke, she came up to me, she said, I'd like to do the following. She told me, she was real. She gave the most powerful drug presentation I've ever heard in my life. She did it in 6 sentences. Sentence 1, my name's Holly Hennessy. And she lived outside of Palm Beach on a yacht. She was rich. Sentence 2, this is my son, Jason. So I'll hold up a picture the day he graduated Brown University in 2001. Sentence 3, this is my son Jason's law degree from Harvard Law School in 2005. Sentence 4, this is my son Jason's MBA from University of Chicago in 2008. Sentence 5, she holds up an empty bottle of OxyContin and says, this is my son Jason's drug of choice in 2009. And from under the table, she picks up his urn with his ashes in it and says, this is my son Jason in 2010, thanks to that bottle. If we do not have a paradigm shift in the United States, if we don't start understanding where we are, then we will have too many Jasons every single day of the year. Thank you, guys.
Bob, quick question. So we've been stuffing our prison systems with drug addicts, and that doesn't seem to be a sufficient strategy. If you were in charge of everything, what would you do?
Move. He's asking a guy who's in charge of almost nothing, by the way, so I appreciate that. Putting drug addicts in prison is an absolutely stupid policy response to what is basically a medical problem in the United States. The problem is most politicians are afraid to say that because they think the public will perceive them soft on drugs. I think the public is ahead of the politicians on this. I would mandate treatment. I would put in a drug court system where if you've got a problem, you get treatment, you get help. It costs about 75% less to put someone through drug treatment than to throw them in prison for a year. Hello, we have doubled the number of arrests in the past 15 years. We have doubled the number of drug addicts in the past 15 years. If that isn't insanity, I don't know what is.
Thank you very much, Bob Stutman.